Hello, hello, hello. It is Monday. It's Moscow Mitch Monday. So very, very exciting. We're very excited to have everyone with us for this lovely Moscow Mitch Monday. I'm Aaron Viles. I am one of the founders of the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. And we are coming to you live in our digital demonstration today, sharing with you some Mitch moments, Mitch in the news, and why we need to get rid of Mitch McConnell in November. So as you guys know, probably know, we do this instead of a live demonstration. We think in the kind of times of COVID, it seems awfully smart to be sharing information this way. But we do want to keep that spirit of protest alive. So we like to start off our episode. What would your sign say today? So it's a big day for protests all across the country, as it has been for the past week for sure. If you were out protesting today, what would your sign say? And I'm going to call on folks. So, Doug, what would your sign say? Who are you? What does your sign say today?
I'm Doug Price. I'm from Harrison County, Kentucky. And my sign would say, protest all over the country. Where are you, Mitch?
Excellent. How about you, Nate?
I'm Nate Orshan, coming at you from Frankfurt. And my sign, like last week, would be, hey, Mitch, repeat after me, Black Lives Matter.
Excellent. And I'm Aaron Viles. I'm in Childsburg, Lexington. And my sign would say Black Lives Matter. It would be, I guess, the same sign that Mitt Romney had when he joined the protest this week, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, so this week, what are we doing? What do we got going on today? If you are watching right now, if you have joined our live stream, I hope you have. I hope we're not just talking to each other, because we can figure out easier ways to do that. But if you're on Facebook right now watching the live stream, add in your slogan. What would your sign say in the comments? Let's share some ideas, share some news. What we're going to be doing today, we are going to be doing a little bit of Mitch in the news. Then we've got an essay by Kit talking about how Mitch never lets us down and letting us down. And then we're going to turn to Doug, who is going to have his weekly installment of Following Mitch's Money. And then we'll be welcomed by we will welcome our guest, pastor, educator, author, Leah D. Schade. A lot to cover today. And before we get into it, though, very big news, guys. Hold on to your hats. Well, Doug, you hold on to your hat. We have got an amazing special live stream. Instead of Moscow Mitch Monday, this week we are adding a special live stream on Wednesday. That's because we just cannot get enough of our own voices, and we need to share them on the internet. More importantly, though, we are going to be joined by the 3 primary candidates for the Democratic nomination for Senate. So the folks who are battling it out right now for the honor, the privilege, the duty of taking on Mitch McConnell in November. So we have all 3 lined up. We have got Amy McGrath joining us. We have Representative Charles Booker, and we have Mike Breuer. So we are going to have the folks who are right now, roiling loyal Democrats, getting them to figure out who they actually want to fill out in their mail-in ballot. They're going to be here. So we're going to have 10 minutes with each of them. If you haven't, figured out who you want to back yet, or, you think but you would like some more information, hold on to your ballot. Do not mail it in yet. You can wait until Wednesday night or Thursday morning after you've stewed on what you've learned. But we are super thrilled that we're going to be able to bring you this opportunity to hear from all 3 candidates. And that's the big news. That really is. But make sure you actually request your ballot. If you haven't done that yet, please do that. It's very important. I'm sure that, there's a lot of folks who haven't taken the step yet. There's a link. It's very easy. Go Vote Kentucky, govoteky.com. The first button on the top right is request your ballot. They will mail it out to you. You do not want to vote in person. Let me just say that. Clearly there are health considerations of standing up in line, but because we've gone all in on mail-in ballots, which is great, and it's safer and it's thorough and it's a great way to vote. There will only be one voting location in Fayette County, so you will need to line up with lots and lots and lots of other people, I'm sure, if you do not request your ballot. So request your ballot. Be safe. Request your ballot. And then you just need to get it sent back in by June 23rd. So anyway, one last item before we go into the news. Have you signed and shared our petition to Mitch yet? So we are using the Move On petition platform to demand a better bipartisan coronavirus response from Mitch. He needs to meet this historic moment. He needs to ensure that state and city aid, safe elections in November, and responsible corporate behavior are happening and reopening. And we also need a testing and tracing protocol for the country. So this petition argues that those things might be more critical even than appointing more conservative judges. So please sign and share that petition. If you haven't done it yet, please do. I think if we can get a good, solid response, then we can share this information with the media. We can get another opportunity to tell a story about, Mitch doing the wrong thing at the wrong time politically. So please do. It should be in the comments. And you should be able to find that link very easily on our Facebook page or right now. So, folks, you guys want to talk about the news?
Yeah.
Let's do it. That's what we're here for, right? Let's do it. All right. So there's been a few different stories that I think are worth mentioning. Nate, I know you've got one queued up, so I want to go to you first.
All right. Well, the story this week, there's many stories, but the thing that caught my attention is that Mitch is showing even less enthusiasm for a follow-up coronavirus relief bill than he was before, and he weren't too hot about it before. Why? It's because May's unemployment numbers were better than expected. I think they were expecting something like 20% unemployment or something, and it turns out it's closer to 13%. So, in a nutshell, Mitch's argument is, see, we don't need to provide more relief because the economy is kicking in and it'll take care of things for us and everything's going to be great for the Republican Party. Well, those of us who know that Mitch is bad for Kentucky, not to mention bad for America, we also know that the unemployment rate is a terrible metric for measuring economic well-being because A, it says nothing about the wages people are earning, and we know that the cost of living is so high that a lot of people need to work multiple jobs just to keep their heads above water. So that's number one. B, it says nothing about measures such as income and wealth inequality, which is what's really poisoning our democracy and really, making this a country more and more for the hyper wealthy, or as I like to say, Mitch's party. But let's just say that the unemployment rate is a good thing for the GOP to focus on, right? Okay. So the economy has famously played a role a couple of times in switching party control of the White House. It did it. It played a big role in 1980, and it played it again in 2008. So the question is, what was the unemployment rate then? Average unemployment rate apparently in 1980 was 7.2%. 7.2%. In 2008, when it went from the Bush White House to the Obama White House, it was 7.3%. So, which is not great, but 13% versus 7.2. So right now, Mitch McConnell is staring down the barrel of an economy that is predictably ruinous for his party. Okay, so the very least that he can try to do, the very least to endear the GOP to voters like us, is to be a little less stingy with the purse strings to help himself by helping us. Is he going to do that? I'm not holding my breath. That's what I've been looking at.
Yeah, that's a good story. Yeah, I think it just shows, there's a lot of folks in the Senate, led by Mitch, that are completely out of touch with what people are going through, right? So the idea that he would say very clearly, look, we're not gonna extend the unemployment benefit. We're not going to rush another coronavirus relief bill. It just shows that, look, the guy's worth how many millions, Doug? Like close to 50. I think he's getting, probably with his investment returns, close to $50 million. This guy does not he doesn't experience life like we do. And so I think that is one thing that we need in November. We need somebody who is going to actually, be closer to the real experience of the vast majority of Kentucky's residents and voters. And this guy's just, he's just too removed from what we're doing. So the idea that this is going to be some sort of a V-shaped recovery and that, the economy is going to rocket back on as soon as they flip the switch, I think is outrageous, and I think it's foolhardy. But, maybe we should take the temporary pain, because that means that there's very little likelihood they're going to get reelected. Maybe we should just, let them go forward with their very thoughtless and careless and callous economic policy. But that's not really, that's not why we put people in political offices. We want politics should be about making people's lives better, helping us have the resources and the systems that give everyone equal opportunity. And clearly, if you look around the world, what the U.S. is doing here is fairly unprecedented. People should not be forced back to, and of course, Mitch's entire agenda. It's not just the one piece that Nate described, right? It's also the making sure, like his other red line here, in terms of any sort of movement with a coronavirus relief package or a response package, is to ensure that there are protections for corporations. Right. Again, the whole greedy trial lawyer. When Mitch or any Republican starts talking about greedy trial lawyers, you should start thinking very critically about what they're saying next. Because, the greedy trial lawyers, well, those are the folks who sue corporations when they do things that, that affect our health, that affect our environment, that makes, life harder for people. Our only backstop, by and large, is through litigation. We've seen what happens politically. The greedy corporations get whatever they want. So the idea that they're getting legal protections on top of the political protections they already enjoy, so they can rush their workers into unsafe conditions and be very confident that they're not going to be sued if their workers get sick and die from coronavirus. That just it's outrageous. It's astounding, but it's that's Mitch. If we've learned anything from watching this guy's 35-year political career, it's about Mitch first. It's about power, and it's about what's best for corporations again and again and again. So that's what we've got. But another news item gives me a little bit of hope that there's a couple of ways Mitch can lose his job, right? So Mitch is, of course, the Senate Majority Leader. So there's the election happening in November. And the easiest way for him to lose his job is for us to retire him by replacing him in Kentucky with another politician. I really like that one, because I don't want Mitch McConnell to be my senator for another 5 months, let alone another 4 years or 6 years and 5 months. That's yikes. That just makes me want to there's like something coming up there that you guys don't want to see. So. But the other way he can lose his job is if the Democrats flip the Senate, right? So that's where I think there's been some hope. And I'm reading an article. Democrats currently have 47 seats, right? So that's 4 short of an outright majority and 3 shy of a controlling number if Biden wins, because then his vice president could cast it and need tie-breaking votes. So what we know is they're probably going to lose a seat in Alabama, unfortunately. Senator Doug Jones is not going to be running against, confirmed pedophile Roy Moore like he was last time. So as much as Doug, I think, has been great for Alabama, he's been a great senator. He's shown lots of courage. He's a dead man walking by all safe political considerations, just because of the politics of Alabama. But we have a lot of pickup opportunities. So we've got GOP held seats in Arizona, which we could pick up. There's Colorado, which we could pick up. Maine is a very significant one. Senator Collins, and then North Carolina as well. These are all currently ranked toss-up states by the Cook Political Report, and the Cook Political Report calls it square. They do not have their thumb on the scale whatsoever. If they say a race is a toss-up, then it's a toss-up. But the map is shifting right now, so things are getting better for Democrats than it is for Republicans. So Iowa, Kansas, Montana, 2 seats in Georgia. They currently lean GOP, but the polls are showing and trending in the right direction right now for us. So that is a huge map for Democrats. Lots of opportunities for pickup. So of the 11 most competitive seats, Republicans are defending 9, and Democrats are only defending 2. And what that means is, what we're seeing right now, right? So this coronavirus response was bungled by the party in power and Trump. The massive racial injustice that has inspired the police brutality that's inspired these massive protests, these historic protests. Most sane folks think that that Trump is making things worse, not better, and that of course attaches to that political party. So the fact that he is at the top of a ticket in a bunch of these states that are becoming more swingy means that things are looking better and better for the Democrats. That makes me very excited. Because like I said, I would much prefer that Mitch was not my senator whatsoever, but I really don't want him in charge of the Senate. Because that's when you get his amazing, judicial appointment process. So even if we have a President Biden, but we have a Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, we saw what happened last time, right? When President Obama was in charge, when he had a Supreme Court making the bill, Mitch McConnell stopped him, blocked him, didn't even let his nominee get a hearing, let alone a vote. So, Mitch can really muddy the waters in Washington, D.C. if he remains in charge. But, if he's just one of a sea of, powerless Republican senators, that makes the sting a little less significant, I guess. But at any rate, we've got our work cut out for us because all polls are what? Polls are just a moment in time, and our election is 5 months from now. And think about 5 months ago. Anyone here would have predicted what we're going through right now? Anyone? Raise your hand. Holy heck. No one saw 2020 going off the rails this significantly back then. But here we are. So who knows what the next 5 months will bring. But what I do know is, you'd prefer to be the Democratic candidate right now than the Republican candidate. But there's lots of things we need to influence to ensure that this goes in the right direction. So anyway, so we got a little bit long. Any quick feedback on either on that news item, Nate or Doug?
I don't have anything to add.
Let's vote Mitch out.
Let's do it. Let's get rid of these guys and all his clown posse friends. All right, so what that means is we are now going to be heading into our first essay of the day. If Kit is available, Nate, can you check in with your partner?
Shift.
Oh, hey, look at there! That was so quick. You guys are so good at that.
I am always ready. So, once more, thank you for having me, Aaron, Doug, and Nate. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
So,
we're super excited to have you. So, really quickly, I've got a special surprise for you, Kit. You've got your own on-screen graphic. Yay!
Oh my gosh! And it's so funny because I was going to say, welcome to this week's Mitch Never Lets Us Down and Letting Us Down.
Now you can say it.
Now you can just read it, and it's in blue, which matches my hair. So you're smart, Aaron. I was thinking, this is one day where I actually do have a protest poster myself, but then I actually have 2 protest posters because one of them is, 2 hands. So on one hand is, of course, Black Lives Matter. That is in one hand. And the other hand is, thanks to you, Mitch, I can spell hypocrisy. So that's sort of what I want to talk about today. I was thinking about it, I'm a teacher, and one of the things, well, I'm a lot of things, but I've been a teacher, and one of the things that I've, realized correcting papers over the years is that it doesn't matter how well educated you are, how many books you've read, there are always words that you're going to have trouble spelling. And I know y'all can relate to this for me. So for me, one of them, of course, is the word lavender. So I'm wearing a lavenderish shirt. I'm like, okay, lavender, does it end in ER like or AR like lavender? But then the other word that used to get me every time is the word hypocrisy. Does hypocrisy end with crusy, like democracy? Or does it end with Chrissy, like Chrissy Teigen with no H and only one S? So there's good news and bad news, my friends. I have used the word hypocrisy so many times in reference to Kentucky Senior Senator Mitch McConnell that I now no longer hesitate to spell it. It is Chrissy, like Chrissy Teigen with no H and one S. Thanks to his shenanigans, I have blurted, sung, spoken, and shouted the word. I'll be frank. I am tired of the word, but I'm even more tired of his hypocrisy itself. This issue should concern us all, regardless of party. It should concern us when a political leader proves himself to be a full-fledged hypocrite. Right and wrong should never be partisan, ever. It is incumbent on both parties to do the right thing by its constituents and our country, which is what makes Mitch McConnell's penchant for hypocrisy completely unacceptable. After Justice Antonin Scalia's death in February of 2016, President Obama nominated Merrick Garland to replace him. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, amidst cries from all corners to, quote, do your job, it was even a trending hashtag on Twitter, Mitch McConnell held firm and blocked Mr. McConnell from even getting a hearing and letting the Senate do its job and decide the course of his nomination. He held the Supreme Court seat open until a president from his party, Donald Trump, entered office. His reasoning at the time, it doesn't make sense to seat a justice in an election year. That was 2016. Fast forward to last year, 2019. He was in Paducah, Kentucky, and when he was asked if he would try to confirm a justice or a justice to leave an open seat in the months upcoming before the 2020 election, Mitch McConnell's response, smiling proudly, he said, oh, we'd fill it. This hypocrisy is overwhelming, and there's much more. I think we can agree that whether or not you like President Obama, and I did like him, he's been relatively quiet since leaving office. However, recently in a call with alumni of his administration, a call that was pretty certain to be linked to the public, he described the Trump administration's response to the pandemic as an absolute chaotic disaster and raised alarm that the Justice Department's attempt to dismiss charges against Michael Flynn put the rule of law at risk. Mitch McConnell responded by saying that, and I quote, I think President Obama should have kept his mouth shut, and accused him of being classless. As Ruth Marcus of the Washington Post said, quote, a sense of shame is not in the McConnell playbook. While he's more than willing to criticize Mr. Obama, he refuses to call the truly classless behavior and language of he refuses to call out the truly classless behavior and language of Mr. Trump. Whether it's Trump's provocative tweet about the death of Joe Scarborough's aide from years ago, rude and demeaning language to reporters, Trump telling 4 non-white Democratic congressmen that they should go back to the crime-infested places from which they came, Mr. McConnell could not care less about class. Moreover, when asked about the Trump administration's violent response to American citizens protesting police brutality or his aggressive rhetoric to our country's governors, Mitch simply said, quote, I'm not going to critique other people's performances. I'm not going to critique other people's performances. Wait, what? But you'll critique President Obama for speaking the truth in a private meeting? Mr. McConnell, your hypocrisy is overwhelming. How could my senior senator remain silent when my fellow Americans protesting peacefully were forcefully removed using pepper spray, smoke canisters, and rubber bullets, and ahead of a curfew in Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. in order for what? For our president to stage a photo op? And how does he think he has any credibility in condemning China's actions on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square when he blocked a resolution from Minority Leader Schumer condemning Trump administration's use of force on peaceful demonstrators? But I'm sure I've been a hypocrite here and there. I'm a human being. But one time is a mistake. Multiple times is a pattern. And the senior senator from Kentucky, my senator, is exhibiting a damning pattern, one that's unbecoming a Senate majority leader. So, how does this end? I was a spelling champion in elementary school, but spelling the word hypocrisy has pestered me for years. It doesn't anymore. It's not how I wish I had learned the lesson. Kentucky, I don't care how you spell, but I do care how you vote. We can and we must do better in November. Hashtag vote him out. Love, Kit.
Boom.
Hey.
I can hear you now.
Oh, great. So yeah, apparently we might have had some audio difficulties. Sorry about that. We are bringing in Doug for his regular following Mitch's money, and then we're going to have Leah Schade, Reverend Leah Schade, with us to close things out. Doug, what have you found to dig in today about Mitch and his political hijinks?
Great. Aaron, Nate, and Kit, thanks for having me on. I am a Harrison County resident. I joined the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee soon after participating in a couple of Ditch Mitch events in Lexington. Someone commented about my hat. Here's the deal. I'm half bald on top and very no haircut for 3 months shaggy elsewhere, so I wear a hat. I've decided I'm going to wear a different hat every Monday, so tune in to see the hats, if nothing else. So far, I've worn my MoscowMitch hat along with a couple of others. I've been asked to do a weekly segment on Mitch and money, and I'll start off with a judge, a corporation CEO, an evangelical, and a wealthy Republican donor were in a bar. Mitch McConnell walked in and said, "Oh my, all of the people I love in one place. I must be in heaven." These are his constituents, not we the people. Mitch wrote a memoir titled The Long Game. All of his friends are with him because of the conservative agenda that he pushes. Did he orchestrate all of this? Was this a long planned out strategy that he's been working on for years? Did he run a long game sting on we the people? Let's take a look. Quoting from an article by Tom McCarthy in The Guardian, all new presidents change the courts by filling vacancies. But what is only now coming into focus is the impact that Trump's unprecedented number of judicial appointments is having on the courts, ruling by ruling, and on the day-to-day lives of Americans in areas such as healthcare, voting rights, criminal justice, anti-discrimination efforts, and the climate. The change is happening. It's happening before our eyes, said Sheldon Goldman, professor of political science at the University of Mass at Amherst, who focuses on the federal bench. It's interesting to note that while much has been said about McConnell's withholding of an Obama Supreme Court appointee and promising to move very quickly if a vacancy opens now, there is more movement to appoint conservative judges in the lower courts. Think about it. How many cases actually make it to the Supreme Court? Conservative rulings can be left to stand by a conservative Supreme Court. But if they never reach the Supreme Court, then those will stand. The Guardian reviewed dozens of cases affected by Trump's judges, which are appointed pretty much by Mitch McConnell, included creating majorities in ruling that targeted immigrants and workers and undermined protections for society's most vulnerable. They have attacked the Affordable Care Act and chipped away at health care, green-lighted funding for Trump's border wall, stepped aside to allow partisan gerrymandering, defended abusive policing, permitted encroachments on the Americans with Disabilities Act, shrugged at emergency requests in death penalty cases, established and reinforced religious exemptions from anti-bias laws. And recently Mitch said, "My motto for the year is to leave no judicial vacancy behind." That hasn't changed. The pandemic will not prevent us from achieving that goal. Again, the long game. Corporate money, how does that figure? As an example, Mitch has raised just under $25 million for this campaign. And when the June 30, 2020 numbers are reported, I expect that amount will rise to 30 million. Mitch is a strong believer of the First Amendment as it relates to free speech. The courts have ruled that giving money to politicians is free speech, and Republican donors exercise their free speech very well. Corporations look at donations to politicians as a necessary evil and are willing to pass that cost along to shareholders. Of course, that cost is also added to products, meaning that we the people are supporting corporations in their goal to have politicians like Mitch introduce legislation that benefits their companies. How do evangelicals fit into the equation? Here's one definition of that word: of or according to the teaching of the gospel or the Christian religion. It's easy to ponder on this subject and have trouble rationalizing the true meaning. I would guess the bottom line would center around the definition of conservatism: commitment to traditional values and ideas with opposition to change or innovation, proponents of theological conservatism, the holding of political views that favor free enterprise, private ownership, and socially conservative ideas, a party that espoused conservatism. Evangelicals support conservative issues, and that makes them a great partner with Mitch. Never mind that many Americans support liberal issues. Wealthy Republican donors. This one is easy. People with money are willing to pay for what they want, whether it's a mega yacht, a jet, access, a politician. As I've asserted in an earlier discussion, someone like me would and has been unable to obtain something from Mitch McConnell. As an example, the coal miners who spent time and money to meet with McConnell and got about 2 minutes of time, plus Mitch has said it many times, thinking about wealthy Republican donors. The key to being a success in politics is money, money, money. Wealthy donors give him what he wants, and he in turn gives them what they want. Conservatism across the board. Back to the bar. I want to end with this. If I happened to walk in on Mitch with his friends, I would not think I was in heaven. I would think I was in hell. Back to you, Aaron and Nate.
Thank you so much, Doug. And now we're super excited because we are at that final segment of the show where we get to bring on our guest. And this is a guest I've been excited to talk to actually for months, literally months, because even before we set up the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, I had the honor of hearing this Reverend's kind of fiery speaking and praying style. We did a invocation ahead of the impeachment eve rally in downtown Lexington that we had about 300 folks on out for the night before the House voted on impeachment. And somebody had recommended and reached out to Leah Schade, and she gave just a phenomenal and fantastically inspiring prayer to open up our event. So Leah Schade is an ordained minister in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and has been for nearly 20 years. Dr. Schade earned both her MDiv and PhD degrees from the Lutheran Theological Seminary at Philadelphia, which is now the United Lutheran Seminary. Her recent book, Preaching in the Purple Zone, Ministry in the Red-Blue Divide, explores how clergy and churches can address controversial issues of public concern using nonpartisan, biblically centered approaches and deliberative dialogue. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Oh, can I make sure I got your sound? How are we doing on sound? All right, I can't hear you. Cannot hear you now. That's going to be an issue. It's going to be a little bit hard to interview without some audio. I'm looking at my settings. It seems like your mic, if you've been using your laptop for video conferencing, the mic should be working. I don't know why it wouldn't be One thing you might want to try, we have some success with, is if you want to log out and log back in with that link, that should work. And in the interim, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to bring back our panel of fantastic media commentators.
We're back.
Hey, hey guys.
Hi.
So hey, what I'm really excited about is that we get to live stream again this week. We're doing it on Wednesday. What are you most excited about Wednesday's live stream, Nate?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's so rare that you get the three candidates together. Like we were lucky enough last week when they all appeared on the WKET the show whose name is I'm totally blanking, but it was such a oh my God, they're all there. So it's wonderful that this is another one of these kind of one-stop shopping opportunities for us voters to see all of them in the same place. So I think I guess I would call it the convenience factor. It's going to be so convenient to see them all there, and then you're going to grill them. No grilling, no grilling. Well, a little grilling.
A little grilling.
You know what else I love? Denise Gray's going to be there too, right? So,
yes.
With you. So, I mean, my goodness, I can't think of two better kind of co-hosts to lead us viewers through, some of the issues that these candidates have to, offer.
Absolutely. How about you, Doug?
And it is unusual. Usually there is a front runner who doesn't want to appear to, I don't know, maybe say something wrong or whatever. And it's really great that we have the three people who are, I guess you would say, in the race are going to be there. And everybody has an opportunity. You're going to ask them the same questions, and they don't know what the questions are. And they're going to answer the best way they know how. And I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really glad that Denise is going to be joining me for that one. You guys are, you're going to be able to watch from home comfortably. You don't have to worry about whether your audio is working or not. And a situation for you guys, perhaps. But no, yeah, please do make sure that, share with your friends. Wednesday at 7, we're going to have this fantastic opportunity before we mail back our ballots to figure out who's the politician that we can see meeting this moment. This is when all three of these candidates declared that they wanted to tackle this huge mountain, right, and have that chance to go toe to toe with Mitch McConnell. The world looked a lot different. Again, no one saw this stuff coming. They weren't running campaigns expecting, well, first, here's how I deal with the pandemic, and then here's how I deal with, the massive historic protests. So this is challenging them in a way that, most candidates aren't going to see these, this is not the typical race. This is a much different race. And so I think it's exciting to see the landscape shifting. Obviously there are, the way things have played out, is giving up an opportunity for people to rise up and declare their message, stuff that maybe wouldn't have resonated before is resonating in a very powerful way. It really is fascinating from a detached political observer perspective. This is a fascinating race. But I am so excited. I respect all three of them so much, and I'm so excited to have a chance to have a conversation with them. And hopefully we can, shed a little light on what these folks would do if elected, or what they would do if they had the chance to go head to head with Mitch McConnell, the father of negative campaigning. So I'm excited about it. I want to thank you guys. We're gonna check in with Leah now, see if we've got some audio. Hopefully we do. Fingers crossed, everybody. I really like it when we get to actually interview our guests. But let's see what we can do now. Testing 1, 2.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, thank God, yes. Very appropriate that you're a Reverend Doctor. That's how I greet all my guests. All right, so we're really excited to have you and hear you. And as we start, this interview, like all interviews, what does your protest sign say today, Leah?
That's a great question. And, uh, you know, Mitch McConnell is supposed to be pro-life. He has introduced all kinds of pro-life bills. And so my sign today would say, hey, Mitch, pro-life equals Black Lives Matter.
Nice. That's great. So I'll be honest, I have not read the book. I have read blurbs about the book, and it seems really interesting. But can you tell us a little bit about preaching in the purple zone, ministry in the red-blue divide, and kind of what messages or what lessons you think we, as people who maybe aren't preachers, can take from it in terms of just our political discourse?
Absolutely. I wrote the book because I found that mainline Protestant pastors are challenged to try to preach and minister in churches where you have people who are red state Christians and blue state Christians. And so we have to find a way to sort of thread the needle. We have to be able to preach the gospel. We have to be prophetic, but we can't alienate people because they're our parishioners. So I've been very interested in thinking about ways that we can use a form of civil discourse called deliberative dialogue to help people find common ground in the midst of these difficult issues. What I found, though, recently is that this administration has actually has made an incursion against the church and has really crossed that church-state boundary in a way that is very dangerous. And we're seeing such an acceleration of white Christian nationalism and the militarized state that it's very difficult to try to find common ground in the midst of that when you have a president willing to use military force to clear a church like he did at St. John's Episcopal in Washington, D.C., to use tear gas and rubber bullets against the rector and the parishioners and the protesters who were speaking out against police brutality. And then he did it again at a Catholic church the next day. So what we're seeing is Trump making a very direct message that I will take over your church and I will use the military to do so. And so that is a threat against houses of worship everywhere. And so Mitch McConnell's refusal to critique that is just an abomination that is so clearly against our constitutional right to assembly and the freedom of religion. And his refusal to say anything negative about that, I'll repeat Kit's word, it's hypocrisy, and it's totally against the Constitution.
So that St. John's Episcopal scenario, which was so inflaming, so many people, of all political persuasions, I think, did see that as a horrible, horrible demonstration of this kind of police state power, all for a very odd photo op. The optics of it. I'll just say it. Like, the guy clearly doesn't spend a lot of time holding a Bible. I feel like he was shaking it to get the Jesus power flowing. Like, I was not quite sure. He looked it was clearly not his Bible. In fact, somebody asked, "Is this your Bible?" He said, "It's a Bible."
Right.
So, how can this man, who is so clearly does not put stock in his own personal faith, he didn't go to the church to pray. He didn't go to the church to meet with the leaders of that church who've been doing such important work to minister to people. He didn't go and tour the damage, the sad fact that there was a fire. Like he didn't do any of that. He just stood there to try to send a clear visual message that he's strong, that he doesn't let protesters keep him from doing what he wants to do, and that Jesus is on his side or something. How did that resonate with you as a person as a faith leader, watching his kind of ham-handed, heavy, fisted approach to faith and politics?
I was extremely alarmed by this. I see it as more than just a photo op. He could have chosen any place to go for this supposed show of power. At first, I thought it was just, he wanted to show his strength after being made fun of for being bunker boy. But he chose a church to do this. And that sends a very clear signal that he's trying to align the Christian faith with a totalitarian state. And I write for Pathos. I'm the eco preacher blogger for Pathos. And I wrote a series of articles that notes the similarities to Hitler's playbook, because the Third Reich, wanted to co-opt the Christian churches and did so. And many Christian churches in Germany supported the racist policies and the tyranny of the Third Reich. And so we're seeing the same kinds of patterns happening now. And so I've called on Christian clergy to organize themselves into groups similar to what the Confessing Church started in Nazi Germany. There was a group called the Pastors Emergency League, where they met and they resisted the Third Reich. And we have now come to the point where Trump has crossed that line. People like Mitch McConnell refuse to call him on that abuse of power. And so people of faith must come together with a united voice to stand up to say this is wrong, this is unconstitutional, it's a violation of the separation of church and state. We will not stand for it, we will resist, and we will work to do everything we can to restore the foundations of our democracy. Because that foundation is what enables churches to function in the first place. So we need democracy in order for us to have freedom of worship.
Right. And it's so just confounding, because this administration likes to wrap itself in the language of, religious freedom, mostly when, there are members of their evangelical kind of cohort that want to, make sure that it's okay if they, discriminate. There's all sorts of reasons that they love this idea of religious freedom, but it's really freedom for their religion to take, prominence and priority over any other religious viewpoints. So I think it's a bit of a twist, and it's, again, goes to the kind of disregard for the constitutionality and our freedoms that we all hold, they say they hold dear, but they don't seem to understand very well, and it's truly unfortunate. I think it's troubling because the Trump administration has done such a good job and has put such concerted efforts into dividing us, and I think humans clearly we fail on so many levels so much of the time. Why we need that kind of that faith to help get us through, and to offer that redemption, because we just mess it up again and again and again. And I think it's easy to divide us because half the time we want to be divided. We prefer it that way. We like the idea of being superior. I'm guilty of it right now, right? There's like this idea that that it's us versus the other, and our mental state. We like that. Church is one of those places that shouldn't encourage those instincts. They should challenge you again and again to set aside those instincts and to be better. And yet it seems like Trump is doing the opposite of that. I'd like to hear again from you, from your book, or what you found. What are some of those ways? So say you've got some in-laws and they spend a lot of time with Fox News, and they're really scared right now because they're sure that there's fires in downtown, and there's looting that's happening because Fox is doing their darndest to make sure that everyone's afraid, because it's really easy to divide us when we're afraid of the other. But what would you say in terms of trying to find that common ground and find some kind of common sense measures that we can agree upon as people who profess to be Christians or not Christians? What are some tips you've got?
That's a great question. And that I hear that a lot from people who are in situations where they're either with coworkers or family members or friends, or they're own parishioners where they're so divided on these issues. And we're dealing with a propaganda machine that is frankly brainwashing people. When you are submersed in this kind of disinformation campaign repeatedly, and you are hearing these voices that are gaslighting continuously over and over and over. I mean, we've got a cult mentality, and um, so what I've found is that it's important to help people, first of all, tell their story. So if they're worried about, say, the immigrants, or they're worried about the looters, or they're worried about, whatever it is, to get to the emotional level and to say, tell me about a time when you experienced a person of color that was positive for you or negative. Tell me about that experience. Tell me the first time that you had a conversation with somebody who's an immigrant from another country. Tell me what it was like to the first person that you met that was LGBTQ growing up. What was your relationship with that person like? Get people past this sort of Fox News spin to talk about what has been their personal stake in the issue and hearing people's stories. What are they concerned about? And find a way to identify that common ground. So if, for example, they say, well, my house was robbed and I'm pretty sure it was those, probably a bad word, down the street that did it. And instead of, at first saying, maybe it wasn't, to say, if I had been robbed, I would be upset too. And I wonder if we can talk about why it is that people that whites automatically assume that it's people of color that are doing crime, when in fact the statistics tell us that white people commit crimes too. And I wonder if we can talk a little bit about why that is, why we've been socialized to think that way. Because I've been there. I grew up in a Republican family, and now I'm, a flaming green Democrat. Very ecology is very much a concern of mine. And so I've had my feet in both the red and blue camp for many years. And so if we can find a way to build on the relationships that we have, that's the ideal. But I will also say that the further this division goes, the more that people like Mitch McConnell, people like the president, people like those who benefit politically and financially from this business, the more that they ratchet up the rhetoric and the further that divide becomes, the stronger we're going to have to speak out against the clear violation of human rights. It's not just a matter of finding common ground anymore. It's like saying, well, we can compromise with the Nazis. No, we can't. There's no common ground there, because what they want ultimately is the silencing, the shaming, the stripping of rights, the erasure, the physical harm, or the murder of people who are not straight white males and Christian. So Christians specifically have a obligation to speak out against that and take a firm stand in defense of those most vulnerable in the midst of this administration.
That's a lot to think about. Thank you so much, Leah. This has been a very thoughtful conversation, and you've put a lot of important information out there. It's truly staggering to think about when we see these historic demonstrations, right? When in the history of our nation have we had week-long demonstrations against police brutality, and in every major and very minor cities? I saw an article today about the amazing protests that were happening in Moorhead and Corbin, and like these very small rural towns in Kentucky. People are showing up for racial justice, and so the idea that we've got one political party that is inspiring white supremacists to think they've got cover. Meanwhile, this historic response is happening in the streets of every town USA. It gives me some hope. As much as the propaganda machine is running on fear and it is inspiring the worst of our nature, I see the best of our nature coming forward as well. And so, I think that we're in a very unique time. It is a very historic moment, and I'm very hopeful that voices like yours can continue to get attention. Please do check out her blog. Eco Preacher does some great. I would love to have you back, because we haven't even touched on Mitch McConnell's anti-environmental agenda, and that's worth a full episode for sure, because we know that if you care about climate, we can't see another 6 years of Mitch McConnell. And so, that's another issue, another thing we need to discuss. We've got 5-ish months before this election. So I hope you've had a good enough time that we could get you back as we talk about some of these other issues that are happening around our state, around our Commonwealth, and around our country, because it seems like you've got a great handle on a lot of them. So.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And I would just say that for any clergy that are in a position where they can speak out, to really exercise prophetic courage. I know it's difficult when you're in a congregation that is divided, but this is the time, this is the moment. Aaron, what you said, this is a tipping point for us. We're going to look back historically, and people are going to be asking, where were you? What did you do? What did you say? And we are accountable for clergy. We're accountable to our congregations, our communities, and we're accountable to God.
There's great truth there, and it is a challenging time, and no one wants to be, no one wants to get the emails, or they don't have the awkward conversations after the sermon. But this is the time. If you have got a prophetic voice, you need to share it, because we are in a challenging moment. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Leah Schade, and we will look forward to talking with you again. But thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Bye. All right, so we got our crew back. The final send-off. Doug, Nate, any quick thoughts from that interview?
I just wish prophetic courage to every single minister in the Commonwealth. May they all muster it and do what's right.
There we go. Doug?
That was amazing. She had some wonderful words, and I think as she said, I think we're going to look back at this moment in time in the next 2 or 3 years, and we're going to say that something started.
All right, that's great. So couple final plugs. We've got the Wednesday live stream. Join us at 7 o'clock. Guys, really, we got to show up for this one. We've got all the major candidates of the Democratic nomination for Senate are going to be with us, the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. We can't have a few views. We got to have hundreds of views. Invite your friends, anyone who's not sure who they want to vote for. Maybe they're thinking, maybe I will support Mitch because, I don't know, they're gluttons for punishment. But people who are torn and they don't know who they're going to support against him, make sure that they know this is the place they can learn some more about these candidates, see them on their own, see them asking some challenging questions, so share that. We'll get an event up tonight, so you can share that with your social media feeds. Make sure to request your ballot, because after you're done watching the live stream on Wednesday, you're gonna know who you want to support. You gotta write that down. You gotta stick it in the mail, and you gotta get out there. Again, we'll share that link in the comments so you know how to request your ballot. And then please do sign and share our petition. If you've already signed it, share it. If you've already shared it, share it again. Share it through email. Share it through direct messages. Share it on your Twitter. Don't really share it on your Twitter because no one actually signs petitions on Twitter. It's not really worth your time. But share it on Facebook and definitely direct message or text or even emails. Doug, I think we've got an email going out soon. Is that true?
We sent out one earlier today, and I'll send out another one reminding people about Wednesday.
So and if you are not on the email list and you would like to be on the email list, send us a direct message. and we will add your email, or just put your. Well, I can't encourage you to put your email in the comments because then people who knows what they'll do with it. But direct message it to us. We promise to treat it with respect. We will not send you unsolicited emails. We're just going to get you up to speed with what's going on with the campaign. So, folks, thanks again for a great evening. Always a pleasure talking politics with you guys. But hey, if you haven't done it yet, go write a letter to the editor. We have got to keep pushing against Mitch's horrible agenda. I'm sure you've heard some stuff tonight that made you think, wow, we got to tell more people about that. The fact that Mitch McConnell blocked a resolution condemning the president for clearing out peaceful protesters and not understanding how the Constitution works, that's something that should be shared. Write a letter to the editor. Nate, how can they find the right email address to send their letter to the editor?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Aaron. It turns out that on our website, we happen to have a page.
What?
So go
on the website?
Yes.
That's crazy.
retirementformitch.com. retirementformitch.com/LTE. So letters to the editor. And there you will find a long scrolling list of the major newspaper from every single one of our counties, I believe, lovingly compiled by Mr. Doug Price. To my left, your right, my right, your left, and you can some of them you just email to, some you have addresses, I think, but most of them are online. Anyway, that address again, retirementformitch.com/LTE. Go do it.
Awesome. Do it, folks. Get your views out there, right? Don't hide it under a bushel. Get your views out there in the public square. And, it's Facebook, it's Twitter, and it's also the letters to the editor. We're not going to encourage you to actually literally stand in the public square with a sandwich board.
There's no love for Twitter tonight, is there?
I like Twitter more than Facebook right now, which I shouldn't say because we're Facebook live streaming to you. So, Zuck hears it. He's going to shut us down immediately. But no, Twitter, I give credit to Twitter because they, almost started enforcing their community standards against the president. Just ignores them completely. So, all right. Hey, we went long. I want to say thanks again for everybody who viewed this live stream, or if you're watching the recorded version, thanks for tuning in. Again, Wednesday night, join us. It's special. I know it's not Moscow Mitch Monday, so you might be confused. Why are we live on a Wednesday? It's because we decided we couldn't wait till next Monday. We knew that people are getting their ballots. They're preparing them to mail in. We wanted to give you this information before next Monday. So hey, we're doubling up our workload. And just so everyone knows, all volunteer campaign. All volunteer. Doug's not getting paid. He's finding out
no money.
His money, but he's not getting any money on his own for this. Nate, no. You heard that amazing intro music, and we're about to hear that amazing outro music. Hint, same music. But we haven't paid him anything for this original composition. We haven't even started fundraising yet, but we might. We might start fundraising, but we'll still be volunteer. So at any rate, folks, have a great night, and we're going to play out a little bit of Nate's phenomenal music as we go. It's hard to dance with such a little space.
Great.